Okay, good evening. Today is Thursday, April 25th, 2024, 6:34 p.m. Brian, can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Grippo.
Present.
Dr. Hopkins.
Here.
Miss Inocencio. Mr. Jackson.
Here.
Miss LaCourte. Miss Maris. Mr. Parker.
Here.
Mr. Shaban. And Miss Singh.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Can you also read the Open Public Meetings Act, please?
In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, Sunshine Law, copies of the public meeting notice were sent to the Courier News, the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, the Franklin Reporter, tap into Franklin Township Clerk Manager, district schools, offices, and associations, PTO presidents, and posted on the district website.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to move into confidential session, please?
So make the motion.
Made by Dr. Hopkins. Can I get a second? Seconded by Bill. We're going to move into confidential session. Motion to adjourn to confidential for the purpose of discussing confidential matters, including a student matter and a personnel matter. Minutes of the confidential session will be made public when the reason for confidentiality no longer exists. All in favor? Thank you. We'll see you soon. Good evening, everyone. It's still Thursday, April 25th, 2024. And we are now at 7:32 p.m. We just came back from confidential session. Confidential matters, including a student matter and personnel matter. Minutes of the confidential session will be made public when the reason for confidentiality no longer exists. We are back in regular session. If you can please stand, and Dr. Hopkins, if you can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag. United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Jimmy, can you please read the mission statement?
I can. Mission statement of Franklin Township Public Schools. Franklin Township Public Schools embraces diversity, fosters excellent educational innovation, and empowers all students to achieve their highest potential.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
So second.
Moved by Bill, seconded by Dr. Hopkins. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Do we have the student representative? I guess not. And then we'll move on to the public hearing on the advertised proposed budget for 2024-2025. The floor is yours, Dr. Valley.
Well, thank you. So a little different than last month when we presented this as a preliminary budget. This budget's now been approved by the county superintendent of schools. It's been advertised, and this is a hearing form. So what happens is I'm going to talk a little bit briefly about some of the same things I talked about last month. Steve is going to come up and talk a little bit more about, Mr. Freed, about the things that he couldn't talk about last month, which would tax impact and those kinds of things. Then we're going to open to the board members first for questions, and then immediately following, different than last time as well, we'll be opening to the entire public for questions on the budget only. Then we'll close that portion, take a motion, and hopefully support the budget. So the 24-25 school budget, or what we would call fiscal year 25 school budget, this is the final budget presentation. There is a list of our board members who you all know because they're sitting in front of you. And the reason we put this up here is because those with the asterisk are those that are on a finance committee. So you can see the board members who helped, and the whole board helps to create the budget, but these folks are intimately involved with the administrators in creating the budget. And Ms. Maris, who unfortunately couldn't be with us this evening, is the Board of Education member who serves as chair of the Finance Committee. These are the budget managers for the school. This is a large district, so you can imagine we have quite a few budget managers, superintendent of schools, assistant superintendent for business, assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, and the list goes on. We've got building principals who also help to manage the budget. We've got academic content supervisors, 14 of them, each who have their share of the budget and manage it throughout the year and help create it. The athletic director, so forth and so on. So that's a complete list. That's probably 40 or so folks. So again, it's a fairly large operation with lots of folks who play part in not only building the budget but managing it through the year. The goal for tonight: review the previously approved budget goals, review estimated revenues and projected tax impact, receive Board of Education and public comment, and then hopefully gain Board of Education approval. Once the budget's approved under the current set of regulations, then it becomes the operational budget for the year, would get uploaded into the system, and then purchasing would begin over the summer for the new school year. Our fiscal year, by the way, for those who may not be familiar with schools, our fiscal year actually begins July 1, not January 1, which is a township's fiscal year and obviously the calendar year. So last time I spoke about these. This time we put hyperlinks to it as not to take too much of your time. But these are the budget goals. So every year, early in the year, we begin the budget building process. The board sets the direction and the tone for budget building. And they do it in the form of these goals. So I'll just read the first one. Support district initiatives to ensure the physical and mental well-being and safety of students and staff. So that's a budget goal. And what you see hyperlinked next to it is how it aligns to the board goal. So this presentation will be online afterward. You can certainly see the board goals, which are also listed on your agenda, by the way. And then you can see there's a whole set of budget goals that help to guide those 45 people or so in building the budget, including myself. And not only do we have budget goals and board goals, but we also have a strategic plan in this district. And this is how all of our budget goals connect to our strategic plan, right? So again, using the first one as an example, support district initiatives that ensure the physical and mental well-being and safety of students and staff. That aligns to strategic plan goal area 1. And if you click on that hyperlink, it'll take you right to our strategic plan and will take you to that goal area 1. So what you'd be able to see is how the budget goals tie directly to the strategic plan and the board goals. So, like any other budget, this budget building process had its challenges. We want to support and grow programs and keep the programs we have while staying within our revenue limits. And in New Jersey, the revenue limit is 2%. And that, how do we do that given increases in healthcare costs greater than 10%, anticipated percent increases in transportation costs greater than the current inflation rate, increase of approximately 12% estimated charter school tuition, and a decrease in state aid of roughly $400,000. Right, so those are our challenges. And so we have to overcome those challenges in order to support and grow our programs while remaining in those constraints. So, I talked about a lot of these things last time in the preliminary budget presentation. A lot of this stuff you are familiar with. But what we did was took the opportunity to hyperlink a lot of what describes these programs best right to the actual presentation. So, for example, funds to support students needing behavioral crisis evaluations. That'll hyperlink you to the group that we use to support our students when they're in crisis. You'll see effective school solutions, funds to support effective school solutions. We use ESS at our secondary schools. If you click on effective school solutions hyperlink, it'll describe for you who and what effective school solutions does for us. We have a new threat assessment software. You might be interested in that. We are opening a school-based health center soon with a partnership with Zufall. So if you click on that link, it will take you to what Zufall is all about. And we've done that consistently under each budget goal, we've done that consistently where there may be what I would think an introduction to a new program or something you may not understand. So another example would be, these are all things that we're either maintaining or adding. So the very top one, we're adding 85 pre-K seats. So, you know, we've built our pre-K program. We had about 100 students 8 years ago. We're projecting 800 students next year. So, you know, that's a 700 student growth. That's 3 and 4-year-olds, by the way. I should have clarified that. We see that as a very positive program. It comes with a cost. The good news is that's a state grant. That money comes to us, and we utilize it to support that program. But it is part of our budget. We've got a very popular aviations program. We're adding another section. We've now got kids who are actually studying to become pilots. And we have one kid who went through our program when it was a club, and he is now just gained, he also has recently graduated, Franklin High School graduate, who's now a graduate of Emory-Riddle, and he just earned his commercial pilot license. And this was all fueled by his interest in aviation that was stimulated in our aviations program, which was thanks to Dr. Logren, some of our staff members at the high school who had a very large interest, and a very supportive community member who helped us to fund the program. So we continue that program. We've now brought it into the main curriculum. It's no longer just a club. It's actually part of our program at the high school. So you take the course for credits now, Aviation 1, Aviation 2, and we're going to continue to grow that into hopefully a CTE program. We've got another CTE program starting next year, we hope, and that's Tomorrow's Teachers. You know, one of the things we all struggle with in the world right now is finding teachers. So we have this idea, like a lot of other folks, of growing our own. And we've got a wonderful group of students who are interested in doing that. So we're starting a program called Tomorrow's Teachers. We've got a business marketing CTE program. And when I call them, I should probably clarify, CTE means career technical education, right? So these are programs where you walk out with a certificate that shows that you're somewhat job ready, right? So, and then you can see some of the other unique things or interesting things we're doing or growing. The bilingual and world languages programs are struggling, and they're struggling because of lack of resources. And when I mean resources, I mean human resources. So we've got some innovative things we're trying. Under world languages, we're going to try to engage these two programs. This particular program, when you click on it, you're going to see that that's more of an online support kind of program. And this is more of an online learning program using certified teachers. So in place of physical folks, which we're having a difficult time finding, and so is the rest of the world when it comes to world languages, we're going to try an innovative approach to get back to some of what we were doing prior to having some of these struggles. Benchmark Advance, there's a bilingual component of that. Of course, bilingual education is important for us. It's a growing population here. And Benchmark Advance is our new literacy program, and next year we're adopting the bilingual component for that. And we think that'll obviously pay huge dividends. We're going to expand our bilingual program because of our numbers, and we're starting to mirror and create a second school that will host bilingual. We already have Pine Grove Manor. We now have a second school that has some bilingual sections in it at Claremont Elementary School. We're going to continue in our special ed world with a transitional program that we're working in conjunction with the SCESC, that's Somerset County Educational Services Commission, where they provide some life skills and some job training to our special ed population who will be transitioning out of school, but might not yet just be ready to enter the workforce. So this helps them to get ready to enter the workforce. We've got some professional development goals or some professional development programs listed here. One of the biggest things we're doing next year is making a shift away from our old Danielson rubric, or at least we hope to make that shift. We're working with our actual committee that helps guide that process, and we're moving toward a newer rubric that the Danielson Group has rolled out. And if you click on that, you'll see that it's more aligned to the kinds of practices that we're promoting, the kinds of equitable practices that we're promoting in our classrooms. And so we're excited about that. Orton Gillingham training, that's foundational reading kind of programs. Click on that and you'll learn a lot there. And then a new website platform. We switched a couple years ago. We're going to switch again. We think we've got a better solution even than what we have now. What we have now is a lot better than what we had. So we're excited about that. And keeping in line with that, if you click on that first hyperlink, Apogee. Did I say that right, Mrs. Clark? I did, Apogee. You'll see the kind of move we're making there. And of course, Mrs. Clark worked on this PowerPoint with me, and she would never miss an opportunity to hyperlink the Township newsletter, because we all work very hard on that, and she works especially hard on that. And that shares a lot of news as to the goings-on in the district on a regular basis. We also have a goal about green initiatives, and these are some of the things we're doing. The first one's free. We like free, and I wanted to make mention of that because I do think it's important. We are going to do a local government energy audit throughout the district, and I think it's really important that folks know that we continue to look for ways to save money on energy, because if we can save money on energy, not only is it good for the environment, but it helps put money in our classrooms, right? We are going to deal with the curriculum revisions for climate change, because there are some new standards that DOE is releasing with regard to that, so we need to pay attention to that. Our schools have been working night and day on meeting the board's goal of becoming sustainable, and you can read a little bit about Sustainable New Jersey if you hyperlink that once this report goes up later today, if it's not up already. And there is a cost associated with that. It's very minimal, but it's something we want to continue to support. I think this is neat. This is a savings, by the way, that I wanted to make mention of, because I think this is one of the fabulous things the board did more recently than not, and that was solar panels at Claremont Elementary School. So we're generating solar panel revenue of about $85,000 annually. So we own the solar panels at Claremont. It's the only solar panels we own. The rest of the district, all those solar panels you see, are actually owned by the county. And these panels at Claremont we own. And we are now making, as a result of that, $85,000 annually through the sale of SRECs and that type of thing. And on top of that, we're getting an electrical savings of about $83,000 annually, or at least that's what I'm told. So when you add those two things together, that's a pretty good investment. And I see Mr. Potosnak is smiling. Well, he's a councilman now, but he was on the board at the time, encouraged us all to get involved with installing our solar panels and owning them differently than the rest of the district. And at this point now, I'm glad we did it. Not only that, the board most recently talked about, even when we mature out of what's called a PPA on the other schools, dealing with the other panels, we talked about the possibility of acquiring those panels and starting to manage those ourselves, as well as we would like to add to that annual revenue. So I wanted to highlight that. I know it's not an expense, and I'm mostly talking about expenses, but I think that's a really cool venture, and I think that's something that is important to highlight. And it certainly fits into the sustainable and green initiatives and the decrease of energy consumption, which was a board budget goal. This is a summary chart, and you can see this is not huge. I mean, we had some real budget challenges this year. So this is what we're doing staff-wise. We're adding an ESL teacher, and that's really due to the growing population in the ESL world. We're adding a bilingual teacher for the very same reasons. We're adding a secondary English teacher, and that's to restore academic labs, which we spoke about a little bit earlier on one of the slides. And believe it or not, it does help us to grow the aviations program, and not because the aviations program is an English elective, but it's because the person who used to run the club, who now teaches our aviation program because she went and got trained to do so, is a former English teacher. Current English teacher. Yeah, sorry, Dan, current. I shouldn't say former, because she does teach sections of English as well. So we need to replace what we've lost with her and then add some sections of academic labs to support our students. So we're doing that at the high school level. And we're also adding a health and physical education teacher, and that's based on student demand. We've grown that program as well. Mr. Thomas is our supervisor of physical education and health. He's done a nice job growing that program, adding electives and doing the kinds of things that you need to do to help promote health amongst our students. And as a result, we need to commit to now fueling with human resources and supporting those programs. So that's it as far as a summary of personnel changes go. Sometimes this is a little larger, sometimes it's a little smaller. So this is not unusual. Certainly would always like to grow more programs and get more people, but people are in high demand right now anyway. So, and that's really the appropriation side. Why you're all here is to hear about the revenue side of things, and our school business administrator, Mr. Freed, will talk about the revenue, and he will talk about the appropriation numbers and how it all balances and what kind of impact that's going to have on you as a community member. So, Mr. Freed.
Good evening, folks. Stephen Freed, School Business Administrator. So I'm just going to run through the revenues and appropriations with you guys.
Mr. Freed, you'll have to get closer to the mic.
Closer to the mic. Oh, okay. See if I can make it work. So this first slide is a summary of the tax levy. That first line there, 160,974,396, that is our 2% levy, which is a 2% increase on last year's levy amount. The next line under it, 1.140589, that's called the healthcare adjustment, and it's an allowable increase in our tax levy to help offset increasing healthcare costs, which is usually in most districts the single largest appropriation in the operating budget. And so the sum of those two is 162, 114, 985. And that amount represents 84% of the general fund revenues for the entire district. So Franklin's budget is heavily dependent on its tax levy monies. We're not a district that collects a huge portion of their budget via state aid. 84% is tax levy. This tab is a summary of what we're going to be using for our capital reserve. These list of projects here, summing down to $2.5 million. Capital reserve is a savings account of sorts for unspent appropriations from 2 years prior. This list is developed in conjunction with the Building and Grounds Department and represents capital upgrade items that are often too large to fit into the general maintenance budget appropriations. Similarly, there is a maintenance reserve that we are withdrawing $1 million from. Also, it's to help support the maintenance budget operating costs, and that is a list of the items that we're going to be, projects that we're going to be doing with the maintenance reserve money, totaling $1 million. This is a summary. This next tab is our general fund revenues by category. The first one is the tax levy amount that I explained. It's going up 2.72%, which is the 2% that's allowable, plus the adjustment, which brings us to 2.72. Next line item is budgeted surplus. We're going to use the same amount that we did last year. Special ed tuition, we're anticipating revenues for tuitions in the same amount, roughly. Capital reserve, we're, again, using 2.5 million, which is 200 grand more than we used in last year's budget. Maintenance reserve, we did not use last year, so, that's a 100% increase, using $1 million there. We are also using unassigned surplus in the amount of $1 million, which, for all intents and purposes, is the same thing as budgeted surplus. But when we are calculating how much fund balance we're going to use in a budget year, that usually happens in the fall before we get our state aid numbers, which happens in February. So it was determined when we found out that we were getting a reduction in state aid that we were going to use a little bit of the unassigned surplus. And unassigned surplus represents 2% of our total expenditures in the year that it's calculated. The next line item is miscellaneous and interest income. Estimating an increase of around 750,000, so a modest expectation increase there, and that's primarily interest income increases, and that's our solar panel revenues and building rental income and all other miscellaneous revenues that happen over the year that don't fit into any other specific category. The other revenue categories is state aid. That, like I mentioned, is actually going down $386,000. And that state aid amount is categorical transportation aid, categorical special education aid, and categorical security aid. The equalization aid is the component of that state aid wherein we got a reduction. Extraordinary aid, this is a grant award that is used to support our out-of-district tuitions. So if we have increasing out-of-district tuitions, then we also too have increasing extraordinary aid. The semi-aid, that special education Medicare initiative, that number is given to us by the county, and that's increasing by $115,000. So that brings our total general fund revenues up to 194,074,956, or 4% increase. The other funds are special revenue fund, which is our grant fund, and our debt service fund is what we use to pay down our debt service or our bonds. So our special revenue fund is estimated to go down $1,069,314, but that's typical because most of our grants, our IDEA, our title grants and non-publics, it's standard practice to budget 85% of the current year allocation. So you automatically get a reduction. And then when you get the actual grant award in the budget year, you true it up to what the actual award amount is. So it's not really technically a reduction there. But we don't know what our award's going to be, so best practice is be conservative, 85%. And also includes our PEA number. That would be a straight 15% reduction based on what I just said, but our PEA, preschool education aid, is going up, so the net of that is going down 5%. And our debt service fund is going down $45,000, but this number is completely driven by the amortization schedules, which is basically the payment schedule of our principal and interest on our bonds. And this tab is our budget-to-budget comparison, where we take the entire budget and squeeze them into a bunch of different categories. And I'll run through the big ones here. So regular instruction, that is going down roughly $652,000, and that's primarily from breakage and teachers departing and new ones being hired, and the breakage in salaries there, whether there are people retiring at higher salaries and hiring in lower, there's breakage there. But although it looks like a big number, it's a 1% decrease on that line. Let's see, special ed instruction, that's roughly $800,000, 4% increase, and that's due to added special ed programming and contractual raises. Co-curricular is going down around $619,000. That's primarily due to a reallocation in transportation costs that were budgeted in that line in the prior year that we moved down into our transportation lines. Administration and technology, increasing 311 grand. You know, in looking at this, this is mostly made up of contractual raises and salary breakage and a decrease in some of the technology lines. That's a 2% increase from prior year in the admin and technology lines. Student transportation, this one's up $3.4 million. That's a 20% increase. And so that includes the raises for all personnel in transportation, the increased route costs on all of our routes, new special ed routes for new out-of-district placements. And in addition, as I was looking at it, the original budget, which I'm comparing to here, was under budgeted a little bit last year, and we had to move money around in the budget to bring it up. So it looks worse than it is, I'll say. And the next line, employee benefits, up 2.9 million. That's an 8% increase, and that is our health benefit increase in addition to all the other employee benefits like the PERS, pension contributions, the board share of Social Security, and workers' comp insurances. And the other big market mover there is charter school tuitions. So we budgeted around 21 million even. That's an increase of 1.356984. That represents a 6% increase, and that's based on trend analysis and you know looking at this very heavily and closely, you know, with the superintendent and a whole number of other people. The DOE actually proposed a 12% increase on charter school tuitions, but Dr. Ravalli appealed to the county office and did some trend analysis based on enrollment that he's seeing, and proposed a different number on that line. So still it's a 6% increase, which is hard to budget for, but they were originally proposing 12, so you know, that's a win. So the tax rate. Now, these numbers are all calendar year. I want to make that clear. So you're not going to be able to tie back these tax numbers to the levy numbers I showed you earlier in the presentation. You have to annualize this because that's how the property taxes are actually calculated. So it is actually the second half of 23-24 and the first half of 24-25. So that's what you're seeing there for calendar year, the middle column, calendar year 2024. That's what that levy amount is. The next one, net valuation taxable. That's the taxable value of all properties in the entire Township of Franklin. I get this number straight from the tax assessor for the township. And if you divide those two numbers out, the levy divided by the valuation taxable, you get your tax rate, which is 1.12%, which actually represents a reduction in your tax rate because ratables went up. If you look at the net taxation valuable year over year, it's up across the township $1.1 billion. And that impact on the average assessed home, the average assessed home value, $477,100. This also from the tax assessor. And you guys can find your own assessed valuation. This is just the average. As per the tax assessor, you can Google, assessed values on Google and find out what your actual value is. Plug in this tax rate and get a good idea of what your actual property's school tax rate would be. But taking the average home, $477,100 times the school tax rate, 1.12%, that annual tax impact on the average home, $5,350. So it would be going up $112. And that concludes my presentation.
Sure. Thank you so much, first of all, Dr. Ravalli and Mr. Freed, for this presentation. And I will turn it on to Dr. Hopkins. Any questions? Comments?
No, I think we did a deep dive into this last month, and it's just an overview of what was presented then, and nothing pretty much has changed since the last month, so I'm good.
Thank you. Walter?
No questions. Great job with the presentation. Thank you.
Jimmy?
No questions? Great job.
Bill?
Any action being taken to improve with the health benefits, the cost of health benefits? Are there any strategies that might be employed now that we have the facility for staff to go? Has that impact lessened with Aetna and our providers?
It's lessen the increase, if that's what you're asking. And projection is it would continue to lessen the increase, but there's going to be an increase. Healthcare costs go up every year. So the idea is to control, the idea behind self-insurance and then having your own center is we pay one price for the services. The staff get quality care, and we get it at a reasonable price. So everybody wins, and we get better control over the elevation in those costs rather than, just being at the whim of other providers. So remember, we just opened that in November, Brian, right? So the doors opened in November. We're seeing usage, but obviously it's going to take time for that usage to make an impact. The more and more usage we get, the less and less expense we'll have, and hopefully the goal is not to see the 10 and 12% increases. And quite honestly, budgeting it at 10% is probably better than a lot of folks who are budgeting at much higher rates already if they're not self-insured and on their own premium plan. So
the health center that our staff uses could in fact lower our health costs as more staff uses it.
Well, I'm going to rephrase that for you. It will help control the increase. You're going to find there's no magic panacea, if you will, since we're talking about healthcare, that would take away costs or reduce costs. What you're trying to do is slow the increases, right? Because the increases in healthcare are crippling for no matter what business you're in. If you're, I don't know, a car dealer. I just rode past one a little while ago, and you're a large car dealer and you employ a lot of people. Your costs in healthcare are a challenge for you as an organization. Well, no different for us. So our strategy is to control that elevation in price and slow it, if you will. So we're not paying those 10 and 12% increases or more like some districts are paying. And, again, we're self-insured, which has helped, by the way. Our move to self-insurance, the board's move to self-insurance a few years ago, just having your own fund has helped because, and I'll give you an example why without belaboring the point, so I apologize. But in 2020, when people weren't going to the doctors, if you were in a premium-based plan, guess who got to keep all of the money in a premium-based plan when people weren't using the doctors? Don't raise your hand because, well, you can raise your hand because we were self-insured, but in districts that were paying a premium-based plan, the insurance company got to keep that money.
Right.
So, we certainly didn't envision the pandemic hitting, but we had gone self-insured prior to that, so we benefited from the fact that we were self-insured during that time because we weren't spending money on health care, which means we were keeping that money, where other districts were paying a premium, so they were still paying for services that their teachers weren't really getting. So I hope that explains it a little bit more.
That's better, John. And just want to kick over to the solar panels
Yep.
and electric buses. I know there's been talk about from various parents to look into electric buses, and I know that the provider owns the buses. We don't. We used to own the buses. I mean, that was way back in the day. But is there any move toward talking to the providers? I mean, would that save us money? And if we increase the solar panels, which Claremont is a perfect example, and moving toward electric buses, is there
Well,
any?
they're two separate things, but
Two separate
yeah,
things,
talk
yeah.
about the solar panels first. I think we learned our lesson dipping our toe in the water with the Claremont solar panels, that, yeah, there's revenue to be made while you're saving energy costs. So, the challenge is managing those things, but our person in charge of that is doing a good job. And there is a point where what's called power purchase agreement will expire in a couple of years, and then the board will have to make a decision, because there is a provision in that agreement, is my understanding, where the board will have an opportunity to buy out those panels. And maybe that's not the move. Of course, we'll have to do a little more research. This is all premature, but then similar to Claremont, you could be saving on the energy and selling the SRECs for, and I don't know what that stands for, but maybe I know somebody in the audience who might know what it stands for, but can allow us to make some money, right? So, yeah, there's some interest there for sure, and I think the board has an interest. The facilities committee has already spoken about it, so we're going to keep our eye on it. We really can't do anything with the PPA and most of our flat roofs right now, where the county has those panels on our roofs, but certainly something in a few years for us to be talking about, because I think we've learned our lesson that this might be something for us to be doing, not only from a stewardship standpoint, but because there's an opportunity for revenue, which means more money in our classrooms, right? So that's that part. Electric buses, that's a whole nother challenge. You're right. We contract 7 or 8 different vendors, and if, being honest, if we put that in a bid specification, it would drive the cost of your bid specification up, because it's not equipment that they have. But there may be an opportunity, and we want to have some of those conversations. Actually, hopefully going to engage with some community members who are active in that area in the very near future. We're actually trying to find some dates now, because there may be some opportunity to begin to build our own fleet out again. And I'm not saying overnight, but we do transport a lot of kids, and we transport to a lot of places. And there may be an opportunity to take smaller steps to building out our own fleet with electric buses. Unfortunately, that program, as it stands right now, is one for swapping out vehicles, not for acquiring vehicles. So you have to have buses to trade in, to swap out, in order to benefit from that program. But there may be others out there, and we're going to start to do some of that work to answer your question.
Thank you, Jeff.
Sammy?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, guys. Great job. Can we go back a few slides? Yeah, that one. So I guess I'll just take one at a time. So with the student transportation, I know that we had a whole COVID and post-COVID spike. Have we seen those prices start to come down? It's my understanding, my mom owns a bus company, that those prices are starting to settle down. And should we expect that number? And I know that we have...
Well, I don't know who your mom's company is, but we'll take her.
No,
because the answer to your question is no.
In general, she's seen route prices come down for at least Morris County. I'm wondering if we're seeing a similar trend here, because labor has become more available, routes have become cheaper.
Yeah, no.
We haven't seen that trend.
We're
here.
not seeing the double-digit increases we were seeing, but we're seeing the inflation increases, the 5-6% for sure. So I don't know what you're referencing as coming down. We were seeing 10 and 12% increases. We're not seeing those, but we're still seeing 5 and 6% increases.
There was a huge spike.
Yeah, there was 10, 12, 15% increases. We're not seeing those, but we're still seeing 5 and 6%. And, when you get a 2% increase in revenue and you're trying to balance out a big line like that at 5 or 6%, that math doesn't work so well. So the answer to your question is I would love for them to be at like 2%, but they're not.
So what was this increase relative to last year's increase?
This increase, it's what you see there, although it's not, because that 17 million, as Steven said, we had to inflate that up a bit because that was somewhat under budgeted last year. But we're anticipating tonight approving routes that are about 5 or 6% up. correct me if I'm wrong, consistent with inflation.
Okay. And then I know that we have a new analysis and that we were considering that it might even drive the rates up based on the requirements that we might be elevating. Is that?
No, I don't think it, I think it's just supply and demand. I think that's pretty consistent. And I mean,
I just meant the additional requirements that for safety that we were discussing.
no, I don't think it has had an impact. Because we're consistent with inflation. And if you're consistent with inflation, that's about what you're normally going to see. So again, I don't know, what company your mom's company is, but I'm sure if she's quoting routes, it's probably consistent with inflation. And that's what vendors typically do when they're contracting, when they're bus contractors. CPI, they relate it to CPI, but my understanding is CPI and inflation rate are pretty similar.
Jumping to the charter schools tuitions.
Yep.
Have we noticed are we getting to a point where it's leveling off? Because I know that they were going for increases and so on. Are we at a place where it's going to level off at this point?
So let me explain that. I've explained this probably to nauseam, but I'll take an opportunity to explain it again because I'm not sure if everyone understands the concept, because it is a challenging concept to understand. So different than how we budget, in the regulations, what happens is the charter schools have an approved charter that has so many seats, right? And then if they have an expansion, or if they don't have an expansion and just have open seats, they are able to project what their enrollment would be based on the number of available seats. So what's supposed to happen, and that's where I'm questioning this a bit, what's supposed to happen is there's supposed to be a look at the enrollment trend as well, not just take, the number of seats available and say, okay, allow them that to be projected so that the tuition becomes X. So, for example, if a particular school says that they're going to get 40 more kids next year, and the DOE agrees with that, and they have room in their charter, they would then project that as part of our increase. But if, my question to that would be, well, if the trend analysis doesn't support that, then you're asking me to budget an amount of money that may not get utilized. And then that becomes a problem, because that's not money that we can then budget ourselves. So we were asked, I'm going to use numbers now, we were asked to budget $2.3 million in increase. Okay? $2.3 million in increase is a lot of money. And our 2% increase is roughly $3 million or a little more. So that eats up most of it, all but $700,000. And I just talked about a 5% increase in transportation. Well, where's that money coming from then, right? So what we've done over time, and I've been here almost a decade now, we've tracked the amount the DOE has projected and the amount that has gotten adjusted. So how does that work? In December each year, we also get an adjustment. So we are made whole. It's not like anybody is taking anything they shouldn't take. We're made whole. So in December, Stephen, as a school business administrator, gets a new download from the state that says, oh, by the way, that was over projected. Now your new number for the last half of the year is this. So you're going to pay that much less. But the problem with that in school budgeting is, when does a school spend most of its appropriation? The beginning of the year, in the summer. You're buying your goods, you're hiring we're hiring our teachers now for next year. So I don't have that money available if we're not doing what we're doing. I wouldn't have that money available. So that decade's worth of data is telling me that that number on average has been typically somewhat overestimated by the New Jersey Department of Education by around 6%. But 6% on a number that big, on 19,643, 6% is a big number, right? It's $1 million or so. Well, $1 million buys a lot of teachers, right? Buys a lot of supplies. So what I had to do was demonstrate that to the DOE to say, look, you know, here's a decade's worth of data. Here's the average amount it's overinflated. And here's how it's been adjusted. And we wouldn't, what we don't want to do is short ourselves and then get that money in January. Because January, then that money becomes, I mean, it's great because we can do sidewalks and we do, you know, pavements and windows and all those things, but school districts can only put underspent money at the end of a year into certain accounts, and the accounts we're allowed to put it in, maintenance reserve, capital reserve, and that's it. Tuition reserve, but that's not for charter tuition, that's if you're a send receive. So, I'm sorry, excuse me. So, long story short, no, that hasn't gotten better, and it's really the way the regulation is. I don't know that's any fault of anybody, but I think the important thing is that, you know, we've got a history, and at least we can, you know, we've got a peg to hang our hat on. Now, should we run short in that line at the adjustment in January, then we'll have to figure out how to make up the difference. But, you know, we typically do take in revenue. Stephen already mentioned, we budget our, oh my God, I just brain freezed. Our state, our IDEA grants, our federal grants at 85%, right? So we'll take in money during the year likely because we've conservatively budgeted as we were told at the county level. So we'll be able to cover that. We feel comfortable. Plus we also have additional monies in maintenance reserve. We could always put more things on our maintenance reserve and transfer money. So I'm comfortable where we're budgeted, to be honest with you, and I'd rather keep that money for, you know, available. But it is an issue. It's a financial issue is what it is. It's, you know, I've said this 1,000 times, you know, I don't want to support or not support, or that's a political issue. This is a financial one for us.
Yeah, it's not about support, not support. I'm just trying to understand. So would we expect that same percentage to be the difference for the years coming as well?
I mean, it's gone up, it's gone down. I add a new number in next year, and if it's, you know, if the projection was X and the reality is Y, it'll add to the chart, and then we keep adjusting that. But yes, it's danced around in the last decade. Since 2014, it's danced around 5, 6, 7%, as high as 8% one year. But, you know, we want to be conservative with that too.
Thank you. Can you flip to the next slide? So in this slide, is the basic takeaway that inflation and everything around it, which has driven up all of our costs, also increased the net value of the taxable income of our homes. So we actually have elevated our own costs at a slower rate. We've beaten that, in a sense, from what the inflation would have put. Like, we've done a good job basically budgeting, is the way that I'm reading this, because we are at a lower percentage relative to the inflated house rates, which have affected all of the costs.
Well, I would love to take that bow, but
No, is it? I'm just understanding. Is that fair?
It's fair, but remember, we're capped. So although we would love to take that bow, at the end of the day, our budget's capped, so inflation has outpaced our budget cap. So the answer is yes, but it's because we got a 2% budget cap. I mean, it's, you know, which is very difficult to live on, but yes, I mean, even though we probably could use more revenue because we're capped so rigidly as a school district by regulation, doesn't really matter what inflation is, because we're not going to be able to get any
whatever
more
the
revenue.
extraneous reason is for why we did it, we did do it.
We did do it.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm with you. I just don't want to. I don't want to be the one up here taking a bow, because it's not magic. It's because we're capped.
We were forced to take that,
Yep.
but in the end, it ends up beating.
It ends up beating. Yes, inflation has. You know, we all know what inflation is doing, right?
It's been,
Yep.
yeah. Thank you so much, Doc.
Thank you. So.
That it?
Yes, that's it. And I would like to open up for public comments only on the proposed budget now, 3 minutes per speaker. Can I get a motion to open?
Moved.
Moved by Sammy, second.
Second.
Seconded by Walter. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public comment is now open. 3
those
minutes
folks would
per
just-
speaker, proposed budget only.
Ed Potasnik, Deputy Mayor, 475 DeMott Lane. First, I just wanted to give a shout out and congratulations in the budget on expanding the bilingual program. As someone who taught science for 10 years, I know how difficult it is to take a test in a foreign language, not personally, but for students. And I think a lot of times, people say, what's happening in Franklin schools? And you look at the English language learning population, which is pretty significant. They're taking tests in a foreign language, and it's really hard to do well on that test. And the bilingual program is a great preparatory and supportive program for students that are transitioning, particularly if their first language is Spanish, spoken at home. And I think that's very exciting and also responsive to the community, which is nearly 36% now from the Latino or Latinx community. So congratulations on that. Also excited to see Zufall continue to have progress, which I think is awesome. And of course, I always like to see the district making money from the solar program and building on board member Grippo's comments. Electrifying the school buses is not only good if, as Dr. Ravalli said, you can bring them back here and own them, you're going to get a ton of savings. And the savings could be $1 to $2 million a year off that $20 million number. So as soon as you can get that going, I think there's going to be great benefits. There are tremendous challenges, the way the rules are written, quite frankly, because I don't know where my time is. I have 32 seconds. Because of Governor Chris Christie, when he took back the rainy day funds, this district was forced to sell its buses to an outside vendor who now leases them back to them and jacking up the rates every time, and it's out of control. If you take that back, you take control, you control all parts of it. And electric school buses are cheaper, and they also are better for the health of the kids. They don't have to breathe dirty diesel air and cough their way to and from school. So happy to support and help that. It's a challenge because you can't replace buses you don't already have, and that's all the programs currently. But we'll work through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, former board member, former board president. Anyone else? Okay. Motion to close by Dr. Hopkins, seconded by Sammy. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So now we're at the point where we would like to adopt the 2024-2025 budget. Sections 1 through 6 and 7 has been withdrawn. Can I get a motion? Moved by Mr. Grippo. Can I get a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Jimmy. Can we have roll call, Mr. Bonanno?
Just to clarify, 7 wasn't withdrawn, that's a
Oh,
withdrawal. It's a maintenance reserve.
maintenance reserve withdrawal, sorry. Yeah, so 1 through 7.
1 through 7.
Mr. Grippo?
Yes, the budget was prepared in great detail, and all of my questions were answered. I think we're going to have a good year next year. We just have to continue looking for ways for money to be to work for us, and I think we're in that track. So yes, definitely.
Dr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Shaban?
Yeah, agreed with Bill. Not easy living within that 2% budget, and then also building a health center, building a center for the health center with partnering for the kids this year, expanding the pre-K program for next year, doing all of that within a 2% capacity is impressive. So thank you so much.
Ms. Singh?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. And now we're on to our superintendent's report.
want me to talk. It doesn't want me to talk anymore. So I don't have a formal report, but I do want to say thank you to Stephen. Thank you to all the budget managers. Thank you to the Board Finance Committee and the board as a whole. Like every year, this year was quite a challenge. And I appreciate the endless amount of support and the number of hours that went into crafting this year's, actually next year's, FY25 school budget. So Stephen, thank you. Thanks to your staff. And thank you, Finance Committee, rest of the board for your support. And of course, thanks to the community for your continued support. We look forward to a great year next year. And that's it for me.
Thank you. And now we're on to Board President's report. I will begin with requesting everyone to join me in a moment of silence. Would like to ask everyone for 2 warriors who we have lost since our last meeting. The first one was Jeff Cook, who served the district for over 18 years, most recently as a custodian at Franklin High School. I understand his children also graduated from Franklin High School. And the second one is Dr. Tulane Jackson, who retired from Franklin Township Public Schools in 2013 after over 30 years as an employee. She served in various capacities from English teacher to her position as Director of Fine Visual and Performing Arts, Care and Guidance K-8 when she retired. Thank you. Human Relations Commission. I attended the Human Relations Committee meeting at the Municipal Building yesterday at 7 p.m. I presented a synopsis of the district goals and the mid-year review that Dr. Avali had presented to the board in our March special meeting. The committee was very impressed and commended Franklin Township Public Schools for the phenomenal work we have done so far. During the Q&A session after the presentation, the committee had a few suggestions on how the district could share updates more effectively with the larger township community. I will be asking Dr. Avali and the Board of Education Communications and Public Engagement Committee to discuss these suggestions. Just a few student updates this month as we are looking forward to the special board meeting for student recognition in June. Winter Guard win. The high school Winter Guard won first place at their last regular session competition earlier this month. Navy Coin Design Contest. It is with great pride that I share that the design created by one of our very own Franklin High School student sophomore, Rahul Amin, made it to the top 25 entries in the Navy Coin Design Contest. Rahul submitted the design to the USS New Jersey SSN 796 Commissioning Committee for consideration. The winner's design will commemorate the commission of this new fast-track submarine, which is being named for the state and is expected to be commissioned in the fall. Chicago. The Run of Chicago Teen Edition at the high school this month was fabulous. We had talented students who are truly amazing. Congratulations to staff members Kiara Radvinsky, Director Lindsay Della Sera, Choreographer Elise Martinez, Assistant Director, and Michael Aragones, Instrumental Music Director. Thanks to Anthony Francis, Technical Director Amy Rice, Costume Designer and Producer Carol Stewart for their contribution as well. Project Graduation Spring Used Clothing Drive will take place on May 11th, Saturday, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Samson G. Smith. See the website for a flyer. You can donate new or gently used clothes, handbags, shoes, stuffed animals, blankets, and curtains. The Franklin High School Sisters in Training for Life prom dress giveaway is back and happening on May 4th from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the high school. All students in the community are welcome to join. They are currently accepting donations of new or gently used dresses. For questions or to donate dresses, please reach out to Shayna Britton at the high school at 732-302-4200 extension 4321. I'll repeat the number again, 732-302-4200 extension 4321. Student Code of Conduct Survey. The district has sent a link to a survey asking our students and their families to comment on the current student code of conduct. The survey will remain open until noon on May 2nd. Finally, please check out our district website for information on the upcoming Diversity Night Festival, which will be held on Friday, May 3rd at the Hamilton Street campus of Franklin Middle School from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. All in the community are welcome to enjoy the performances, music, food, games, crafts, and art, which will help all to learn, celebrate, and be more aware of the various cultures within our school community. Community organizations will also be on hand to share resources. Raffles and prizes are also part of the evening's fund. That concludes my report. And now we are going to open for comments from the public, 5 minutes per speaker, agenda items only. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Sammy. Can I get a second? Seconded by Dr. Hopkins. Comments from the public, all in favor? 5 minutes per speaker, agenda items only. Please state your name and address, and then you can come and say your comments. Thank you.
As I said, my name is Matthew Zavatsky. I live at 1935 Old Amwell Road. I didn't intend to make these comments on the night of the budget discussions, but they're very prudent. I have 2 children currently enrolled in Franklin High School. My daughter Maya is a senior. My son Elijah is a sophomore. My wife Deborah and I are members of the Franklin Band Parents Association, the Franklin Athletics Booster Club, and my wife serves as the president of the Franklin Township Orchestra Parents Association. I'm here this evening to voice some concerns about the lack of cell phone and mobile internet services in and around Franklin High School. Quite honestly, when I first experienced the poor cell phone reception and mobile connectivity in and around the school, my initial thought was great. Kids shouldn't be on their cell phones at school anyway. My position on this has changed drastically since then due to a number of factors. First, I became aware that the Franklin Athletic Booster Club, the Franklin Band Parent Association, Project Graduation, the Student Store, and many other organizations and clubs that operate on school grounds lose hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a year in the sale of spiritware, food concessions, ticket sales, and the like, because their customers cannot connect to online payment services like Venmo, Cash App, and Zelle. Rather comical that sometimes you can see people trying to buy things at the high school that leave the line or the cashier, run outside and hold their phone over their heads until their app connects, and then run back in to show that they've actually paid for something. After experiencing this once, many people don't buy anything at future events. Then there was the Metro Basketball Classic, which was held at FHS. I worked it every day. There was a large number of people there, and we raised tens of thousands of dollars for the school. The organization that ran the event had nothing but great things to say about our school's location, its facilities, the concessions, and the people that worked there. And so it was shocking that they said they would never come back until the mobile service improved significantly, as they couldn't receive or place calls during the event, both the organizers, ESPN, and a number of media outlets. Next was the March Madness Tricky Tray. We raised over $27,000 for our school at that event. We could have raised more had the attendees been able to use online payment services to buy tickets, goods, and services during the event. Franklin Athletic Booster Club has expended over $500 purchasing a mobile signal booster. I purchased it. It was off of Amazon. It's nothing significant, and we had it installed in the events lobby. Unfortunately, it was not installed in the way we had anticipated or in the location we had anticipated, and it has provided minimal or no improvement in cell reception. All of these things are inconvenient and have maybe cost our school some much needed revenues, but they never rose to the point where I thought I needed to speak out at a Board of Education meeting, as I'm doing this evening. The need to speak out became evident on the night of the March Madness Tricky Tray, Saturday, March 23rd. After the event and a long day of work, at about 10:30, we were made aware by a student that someone was unconscious in the main office. That person turned out to be Mr. Jeffrey Cook, the assistant head custodian. We all ran to the front office, and when I arrived, another parent, Derek Cotton, was administering CPR to Jeff with one hand while trying to use the ambu bag with the other. I jumped on the bag and assisted as best I could until the police and the ambulance arrived. When they did arrive and took over, they informed us that Jeff was gone, and that he had passed away a number of hours earlier. Since that day, I have been unable to stop thinking about Jeff's last minutes. In this day and age, when someone experiences a heart attack, or any emergency really, the first thing they reach for to call for help is their cell phone. I cannot stop thinking about the possibility that Jeff spent his final moments dialing 911 or his family from the floor of the front office to no avail because he couldn't get a cell phone signal. That led me to begin thinking about all the times I get text notices that there has been a lockdown drill at the school. While I am so very thankful that they have all been drills, what if there comes a day when a lockdown is actually needed? Our children would not be able to contact us, and we would not be able to contact our children. In discussing all this with my daughter, Maya, she mentioned that the lack of cell phone service also has an impact on our children's studies. She informed me that due to the poor mobile service, most students utilize the public Wi-Fi to connect to the internet on their phones, which makes connectivity incredibly slow, if not impossible, on the public Wi-Fi. While there is an administrative Wi-Fi that all the school-provided Chromebooks connect to and works well according to Maya, many students have their own personal laptops or tablets that they use in their studies, which they can only connect to the internet with over the public Wi-Fi, which again, many times is too slow or impossible to connect to. With all these things being taken into consideration, the most important being the safety and the lives of those we love, I implore the board to immediately begin investigating options to improve the mobile service at Franklin High School. Whether that be through enhanced Wi-Fi, a commercial mobile signal booster, or even the installation of a cell tower. I sat on a board of an organization along the New Brunswick Road dead zone, as Verizon, T-Mobile, a number of companies call it. It's not a unique problem to our particular area of the school. That organization looked to have a cell tower constructed. Now, they were much smaller than our Board of Education or our town, and they have been unable to do it. But while negotiating, we're told that they could generate $50,000 to $100,000 a year in income from the companies that hang their antennas on that tower. I don't know the configuration of the school grounds and what the likelihood would be, but I think it's worth investigating. You would be able to greatly increase the mobile service at the high school, taking us from nothing to everything, and possibly generate up to $100,000 in income. Thank you for your time and consideration on this issue.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members and faculty. My name is Cherry Ann Cook. I am Jeffrey's Cook widow. This gentleman, I felt like he was in my head because everything he mentioned today is what I wanted to come up here and speak about. Thank you. What are we going to do about this? I have spoken to my husband many times about the bad phone service. I'm afraid that something terrible was going to happen. Okay, it happened to my husband. We have to improve the system. He was dead for over 10 hours before someone found him. What are we going to do about the custodian employees that's at age? That could happen to anyone. Something has to be done. Please don't let my husband's death be in vain. We need improvement. Walkie-talkies is not working. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further comment, I move to close the open session.
Second.
Motion by Sammy, second by Dr. Hopkins. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Public comment is now closed.
First off, sorry for your loss, Mrs. Cook. I mean, we did talk at your husband's service, and I know you spoke with Mr. Wilson, and we certainly are committed to continuing our research to try and make a change and do what we can. It's a huge building. It's obviously schools are not built for cell service. A lot of concrete, a lot of steel, and there has been things tried, especially with the boosters. So you may be well aware of that with our technology department in order to try and boost signal using signal boosters and other things, but obviously that has not produced the kind of result that we were hoping for. So it's not like there's no concern about that. There is certainly concern, and there has been some attempts to improve things from a cell perspective. I will say during the day, and I know I'm not trying to argue the point, but during the day there's lots of communication vehicles that allow us to deal with emergency situations. We have police radios in the hands of folks that need police radios that are truncated across the town. And, you know, there's buttons on those radios that someone can push, and in a moment's notice, just about every cop in the town are at the school. So, you know, during the day when we're fully functioning, there's some kind of issue. Not only that, we have Share 911 and several other modalities, if you will, or abilities to communicate in the event of an emergency that doesn't require cell service. In fact, cell service is frowned upon, or cell usage is frowned upon in the event of emergency, because we all saw what happened during 9/11. No matter how many towers you have, that all gets clogged up. So the truncated service that we have, that is a closed circuit that allows us to communicate directly with ourselves and with the police department, is the more preferred method in the event of emergency that we utilize during the day. But with that said, we understand there's a need for service, and we understand that you know, it can be improved, not only in the high school, by the way. There's other buildings as well. The smaller the building, the easier it is to overcome, to be honest with you, because the smaller buildings don't have the amount of steel and concrete and the other kinds of things that don't allow cell service to easily be transmitted. Unfortunately, like I said, our school's humongous, and it comes with challenges. And then on top of that, to your point, even just the internet service is a challenge, right? So we've got in the budget, and you're right, this is timely, we've got in the budget equipment that will allow us to make our internet service even more robust. We rely on it for testing and everything else. So, you know, we want to increase what is commonly referred to as bandwidth to even more so than what we have now. We have a lot, but that won't help on the guest network, because that's not where we're increasing that bandwidth. We're increasing that bandwidth on our student network. So, yes, I think the board's committed to. We've had these discussions as a board trying to figure this out, but you know, I don't want to promise that that's something that will occur overnight, but I can promise that it's something that is on your forefront and is on your minds, and it's certainly something that we understand as a challenge. And like I said, we've tried some things, especially to address that more commonly used area, the events lobby, the auditorium, the cafeteria area, where we do have lots and lots and lots of folks often for different programs, and we haven't been able to find the answer. But Mr. Bonanno's capable technology team will keep after it, and certainly, you know, we will hopefully have some kind of resolution that improves it. I don't know that it'll make it perfect, honestly, because it is a very big place, but we're going to continue to try. So,
Thank you, Dr. Rivali. And as the board president, I also give my sincere condolences, Mrs. Cook, and assure you that the board is committed. We have continued to have discussions on this, and will continue to have discussions and try to find resolutions and solutions, and hopefully keep the public, you know, updated at follow-up meetings what steps are being taken in the future. In the interest of time, and that we have spent time on budget discussions, our committee and liaison reports have been posted online. I am our board members have already read the committee report, so if at this time any board members have any comments or questions on the committee reports, we can have a quick discussion.
No comments.
Any comments, Dennis?
No comment.
Walter?
No comments.
Jimmy?
No comment.
Bill?
Nope, they're all available online.
Perfect. So then we can move on to new business.
Great. I would like to move in A01. Oh, sorry. Where's R1? Did I miss a page? Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go. Sorry. I'd like to move in R1 monthly reports, M1 minutes of board meetings, A1 travel and related expense reimbursement, A2 affirm harassment, intimidation, and bullying decisions, A3 teacher appreciation week, woohoo, A4 special education week, A5 autism awareness resolution, A6 seek awareness and appreciation month, woohoo, A7 donation, A8 revised policy second reading, A9 facilities use, A10 emergency bus exit drill report, A11 child and adult care food program, A12 24-25 PEA budget revision, A13 special education board policy statement of assurance, B1 warrants and payrolls, B2 financial reports, B3 contract approval, B4 change orders, B5 receipt of bids, student transportation services, B6 award of bid, student transportation services, B7 award of RFP, Danielson training, B8 award of RFQ, speech therapy services, B9 award of RFP, attorney special education, B10 receipt of bids, toilet room renovation, B11 award of bid, toilet room renovation for the middle school, B12 receipt of bids, chiller replacement, B13 award of bid, chiller replacement, B14 receipt of bids, food services, district produce, B15 award of bid, food services, district produce, B16 award of RFP, private preschool provider partners, B17 year 25 Board of Education estimated tuitions, B18 minor amendment to long-range facilities plan, B19 submission of schematic DOE application, B20 ASCERS reimbursement, C1 out-of-district students 23-24, C2 field trip destination, C3 field trip application, C4 sheltered instruction dates 24-25, P1 create position, P2 new job descriptions, P3 personnel report number 10, and
Thank
that's
you.
it.
Thank you. So there's a motion.
That was a mouthful.
There's a motion to move R1, M1, A1 through A13, B1 to B20, C1 to C4, and P1 to P3. Can I get a second? Seconded by Dr. Hopkins. Can we have roll call, Brian?
Mr. Grippo?
I have a question, John, about B3 contract approval. How does this work? This list of all private schools and St. Matthias and all that stuff, what does that have to do with us?
So that's, whoops. So we are the conduit for flow-through aid. There's some categorical aid that private schools and are entitled to. And technology is one of them. So you're looking at some software things. That's mostly what you're seeing on here is technology. So they're entitled to some technology aid because the state doesn't have a direct connection to private schools per se, the Department of Ed. They flow the money through the resident public school district, and then we disperse it on the state's behalf. So we just really serve as a conduit for the Department of Ed for technology funding. It's not our money, it's a pot of money that is dedicated to private schools that the private schools apply for. The money is distributed to us, and then we forward it on behalf of the DOE to those private schools.
Is there any impact on our staff to manage this? Are we getting any kind of
You know, it's a good,
compensation.
I don't think we get any percentage, do we, Steve? No, it's just, it comes with the territory.
Can we charge a finder's fee or something, Steve?
No, nice try.
All right.
Mr. Grippo,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
I accept.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Shaban.
Yes.
And Ms. Singh.
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Thank you. And before we move on to comments from the public, I would like to welcome Carolina Smith, our new supervisor of ESL and bilingual education K through 12. Ms. Smith, would you like to come to the podium and say something? Welcome to our district.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. I'm Carolina Smith, and I am pleased to be your future ESL and bilingual K-12 supervisor. Since as far back as I can remember, I have always been an advocate for bilingual education, advocating for our multilingual population, but also advocating for the teachers and the administrators that work directly and indirectly with those populations. I have been a teacher for over a decade, and prior to that, I was a business manager in the financial world. And I am truly humbled and excited to work for our continued student achievement in this district and to join such a wonderful district that, as I could see from today's budget proposal, we are continuing to work hard towards making sure that we are inclusive and not forgetting anyone and not forgetting the achievements of our multilingual population as well as all of our students. So thank you so much, and I am very grateful to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations again. And now, can I get a motion to open for public comments, 5 minutes per speaker, any topic?
So moved.
Moved by Sammy, second.
Second.
Seconded by Walter. All in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. Comments from the public, 5 minutes per speaker, any topic.
Ladies, when you're done, just sign my one, okay? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Neeta Vilanki, address 238 Amethyst Way, Franklin Park, and with me is Donna Sozio, address 2 Shepherd Street. We are here tonight as representatives of the newly formed Franklin Township Stigma-Free Council. The Stigma-Free Council is an initiative of the Mayor's Wellness Campaign Franklin to raise awareness about the tangible impact that mental health stigma has in the community. Stigma is the practice of associating negative stereotypes with certain memberships or characteristics such as substance abuse, race, social class, income, intellectual or developmental disability status. This can create barriers and challenges that could be eliminated in relationships, housing, employment, and education. Many are ostracized, isolated, and rejected based on perceived differences in societal values.
We are stigma-free Franklin Township. Some of our members live with mental health issues and/or substance use disorders, and some do not. But we all believe one thing, and that is stigma is harmful. Through personal stories and testimonies, we show that a person with a condition is just as valid as someone without. Embracing a stigma-free culture in our community and schools encourages dignity and respect for our students and employees, reduces the fear of judgment as a barrier to services, and celebrates the differences that make our community and schools both diverse and multifaceted. We appreciate the mental health and substance abuse prevention services currently available to our students. However, we ask the Board of Education to consider taking the pledge to be stigma-free Franklin Township Public Schools. Again, we are asking you, the Board of Education, to consider taking the pledge to be stigma-free Franklin Township Public Schools. We have with us this evening a copy of a sample resolution for schools for your consideration and use. In light of May being Mental Health Awareness Month, perhaps this can take place at a May Board of Education meeting.
The Council strongly believes that post-pandemic, youth and young adults have been greatly affected by mental health issues, and even though some resources are available, are afraid to reach out for help due to the stigma attached to mental health. The Stigma-Free Council wants to break the walls of stigma and reach out to young people to come out and face their issues in a safe and nurturing environment where they don't feel judged. Helping young people will not only make a healthy school district, but will also make our township a healthier place. May being Mental Health Awareness Month, a small initiative in schools can be wearing green for a chosen day in all schools as a solidarity to stand for a stigma-free school district. It does not need to be mandatory, but even if schools are encouraged to put it on their weekly bulletins to students and families, and even if a small portion of students can stand by it, it could be a start.
The majority of our society preys on children and teens who have mental health issues and/or substance disorder. These young children and teens are so vulnerable and easily targeted by our society. We cannot allow this to continue. Action must be taken. We need to stop the suicides of young children and teens where the rate has escalated. And there are reports that I have read that say children as young as 5, 6, and 7 years of age have succeeded in ending their own lives. This is tragic. Action needs to be taken. It is a huge undertaking. We know this. However, with your help, we can all become a stigma-free community and a stigma-free public school district. With your help, this board, all of you, have the power to effectively make our school environment safe, to provide education for both the parent and the child regarding how to give support, ask for support, to be given education by professionals in regards to their substance disorder or mental health condition, and to achieve a no stigma environment where all children, yes, all children, can blossom and shine and thrive and ultimately become their best selves. There will be no feelings of isolation. There will be no feelings of shame. They will no longer hear classmates and friends and others degrading them. The Board of Education, all of you sitting there, have the power to become a stigma-free public school district and to give these teens, these children, a judgment-free environment. By doing this, both teens and young children will have a sense of freedom and relief Their confidence and self-esteem will rise. They will feel whole again. How can we, as a public school district and a community, deny these children, these teens, of this? Now, I don't normally do this, but, uh-oh, I don't know what that means. Oh, well then I guess I'm not going to do it. Oh, I can? Okay, well, I'm one of those people.
If you can finish your
Okay.
thought.
I'm one of these people that have a mental health disorder. At a young age, approximately 7 or 8, my sister, who was a lot older than me, noticed that there was something different about me. They saw a lot of sadness in me and a lot of anger. I never felt a part of my family. I always felt that I was very different. And my sister asked my mother and my father if I could see a psychiatrist. My mother was very willing. My father said no. He said he wasn't going to be embarrassed. He wasn't going to be ashamed. What kind of daughter would that be? How would these neighbors think of us? We lived in a prestigious town, Westfield, and he could not take that chance to be stigmatized and to have his family stigmatized. Throughout the years, I only got worse. When I was around 14, I wanted to commit suicide. I wanted to end my life. All I did was I cried, and I couldn't understand why the rest of my family was so happy, and yet I was so sad. And I did feel ashamed. I didn't know why I felt ashamed. I guess it was because I wasn't living up to what my father wanted for me. And then finally, after trying to commit suicide, and luckily I didn't succeed, my mother was able to get me the help, at least from a pastor who had a degree in psychology, and it was nice to be able to talk to someone on a weekly basis. But here again, my father was adamant about not having me see a psychiatrist. And so my life went from bad to worse because I couldn't understand what was happening to me. And my father was in denial. And he was so afraid of what society would say that even though I know my father loved me, he just couldn't do it. He just didn't want to risk losing friends, wondering how his work and their employees would treat him. He just wouldn't accept that I needed the help. He just wouldn't accept it. And so finally, when I was in the hospital for my heart, they realized something was wrong and that I needed mental health. And they sent me to a psychiatric hospital. And I was diagnosed with mental health conditions, one of which is probably why I'm shaking now, is anxiety, it's depression, it's borderline personality disorder, and it's post-traumatic stress disorder. Because I figured I certainly couldn't tell my father that I was raped. He would think it was my fault. I had suffered from sexual molestation, but who could I share that with? I couldn't get a doctor. And so I tell you this not for you to feel pity for me. I tell you this because this council, this stigma-free council, was the first time when I had gone to a meeting where I actually felt safe, where I felt as though I was respected and validated. And that was really different for me. I stand here before you still feeling ashamed. I remember having people tell me, my supposed friends, classmates, and others, that I was nothing but trash, that I was essentially garbage. I was a worthless human being and I should have committed suicide. That is very hard for a young child or anyone to have to live with. So I ask you tonight, and I know that it goes against protocol, but I ask you tonight, for people such as me, and for all those little kids, and for even the teenagers and the young adults, to make an exception and to make this pledge for becoming a stigma-free Franklin Township Public Schools. No, I'm not actually asking you. I'm begging you. I am imploring you to not have another child suffer like I did because of what society has said was normal, what they would accept. I am begging you to help not only people such as myself, but of the child that felt isolated, that didn't feel like they belonged because of what society had said. And it was funny because when I was finally diagnosed in my 30s, my father said to me, "Well, Donna, it's just like having a physical illness." But it wasn't. So again, thank you very, very much. I appreciate your time and you listening to my story. I hope that you can still respect me, even though I have a mental health issue. I hope that my words are still of value to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Good evening. My name is Nicole Rollins. I live at 20 Winston Drive here in Somerset. I wasn't sure if I was going to speak tonight. My heart is racing. I come from a few different backgrounds where I feel for the young lady that just left the mic. I also feel for the custodial's family, Jeff's family. I was there that night. I also am a member of the Franklin Athletic Booster Club, sitting on the executive board. And I speak on behalf of the youth here in this community. My husband and I, we moved here when we were pregnant with twins from Essex County. And we have a move-in service, and we actually found that this was a wonderful community. The more people we moved here, we said, let's find somewhere. And we planted our feet here and raised our daughters. Our background is in sports. It's what keeps us grounded in our household. What I see and what I hear seems to always resonate with me for inclusivity with everyone that I meet. Somehow I believe that sports seems to bring together many communities, the diversity, conversation, discipline, everything. And one thing that I also see is that it seems to separate a lot of people, and it comes to a point where you have to bring the community together with the children and the youth. And a lot of that is lost in translation when things are going on, because the world is the world. And it's a lot of things that are taking place that we're not aware of. I think that's my phone. Oh, okay. I think it's important that we're all aware of what keeps us all grounded one way or another, and not to forget the youth or the adults once they become adults. The young lady that just left just spoke about when she was 7 years old. And before that, the widow that just left was speaking about a young man that spent many years here in the school system working, giving his life towards assisting our youth. All of this brings us together some way. If there's a way to keep everyone on the same page, I think from my experience, it has been through sports. It keeps the world going financially, emotionally, academically. It keeps children on the same course as far as something to look forward to. It stays inclusive. There's no gray area when it comes down to teamwork. And I think when you sit on a board and you bring everyone together, such as our community is, a melting pot, it should be something that's supported. Not from when you're just 7 until you're seniors here in the community. Our youth represented this community recently in March through the National New Balance Nationals here on the East Coast, and they didn't get support as far as all the things that they've worked hard for. These children start out young at 7 years old, and you have no idea what they're going through. But the adults that's in their lives, you know, they're here sometimes for the right reasons, sometimes, you know, it's just a job, you don't know. But the mindset of the youth, and being a former student athlete as well, they're here just trying to set goals for themselves for their future, and they're listening to the adults around them. More importantly, the adults are the support system. But when that falls off, when they get older, it's really hard to explain. I think it's important to invite the youth here to the meetings so they actually see where it begins, where it ends, how their presence is an impact in the community. And when that's overlooked, it's really hard to explain to them when you want them to come back and give back. We reward or award the kids that, award the kids that actually produce throughout the season, but the kids that actually continue to thrive past the season need the support as well. So I'll give you a quick example. Our season here in the district starts through the NJSIA and ends on March 3rd. I'm just going to talk about the indoor season. 3 days later is the Nationals.
Your time is up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just asking for a quick support for all the youth that's in the community when they continue throughout the year. That keeps them grounded as student athletes, and I think that's what we're trying to do. So that's my point.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
Phyllis Beals, 6 Alma Court. There are so many activities and good things that go on in the Franklin Township schools, and I know President Singh, you mentioned a number of them, but on behalf of Dr. Gail Nelson, I want to share that, and I'm happy to say that the Stigma Free Council and Dr. Nelson have been in communication. So anyway, Franklin High School's PACE, that's Protect, Accept, Care, Educate, Youth Education Conference, sponsored by It Gets Better, 50 states, 50 grants, 5,000 voices, on May 4th, that's the Saturday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. here. All ages are welcome. Guest speakers, games, entertainment, arts and crafts, food provided. So I'm sure this is, a culmination, I believe, or part of a huge grant that was received to support this program. And all students are welcome. I don't know if you can see. It's the Rainbow Plus Plus Plus. And she really wants a lot of you young people to turn out. So anything, please spread that word. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, move to close public session by Bill, seconded by Dr. Hopkins. All in favor? Thank you. So I'll let Dr. Vali address most of the comments. I just want to say, no, just if there is anything, but I just want to thank everyone for their comments, especially about the stigma-free campaign. I am looking for the resolution. If you would like to email that to Dr. Avali or myself, so we can take a look at that and talk about it at the board. Nicole, I can't see you, but I really appreciate your comments, and that is one of the reasons why I think most of us decided to move into Franklin, so we can all relate to that, and we will, keep your comments in consideration. And I think that's really about it.
Yeah, I would just agree if you could get that pledge to us, the resolution. And I'm going to encourage you, send it to me, send it to Ms. Singh, but also if you could copy Ms. Scott. I think you might know Ms. Scott, K. Scott, real easy. K. Scott, she's my assistant, K. Scott at franklinboe.org, and we'll put something together for the board to consider. But Kristen would be helpful with that, so if you could do that, I appreciate it.
Thank you. And now we're at good of the order, so I'll start with Jimmy. Anything for the good of the order?
First and foremost, thank you for all the comments and for all the constructive words that were said today. Heart to go out to you and for all the things that you've had to deal with, ma'am. That should not happen to anyone. And then also for the student athletes that perform outside of the normal school year, 100% their support for that. So thank you for your comments to us all.
Bill?
No specific comment. There's been so much said tonight that's so worthwhile. You just have to digest it. Thank you.
Dr. Hopkins?
Well, my heart and prayers go out to you, Ms. Cook, with the tragedy that has occurred on the school grounds. And yes, and to the mental health piece of it, yes, well spoken, and we all have definitely would look forward into seeing the resolution behind that. And to my student athlete mom, yes, one thing that I'm big on in the subject that you approached there as student athlete, that yes, sometimes we get lost in the mix as an athlete, but don't take the student part of it into consideration, that that comes with academia and all that. So yes, you best believe that the board has the support behind that also. But altogether great board meeting tonight. Very great points that was brought up, just like with your suggestion with the cell phone situation. So a lot was done tonight, or said.
Thank you. Walter?
I first want to thank everybody for actually coming out and hanging out and sticking with us till almost 9:30. We usually don't see this big of a crowd, so please feel free to come out every month to be heard, because as you can tell, we are listening. Your comments we take dear to us, so thank you for coming out. Once again, my deepest condolences to you, Mrs. Cook. I was there that night. Me and my family hung out a while with Dr. Solomon until everything got situated. So once again, my deepest condolences to you. We have heard from you as well as Matthew. Mrs. Smith, she's gone, I believe, but congratulations. And Stigma Free Council, we are, once again, we have heard, we're listening, and I appreciate this board because, and I appreciate this community because we are Franklin strong. We are here to support each other, and I'm so glad that you guys took the time out tonight to come and voice your concerns. So we are a board who cares about our community because pretty much everybody on this board also has a lot of students who have gone through the Franklin district. So we are listening. Have a safe and enjoyable weekend. Spend it with family and friends, and give somebody a hug while you're at it. Thanks.
Thank you. Sammy?
Yeah, sort of reiterating some of the stuff, but condolences to you, Ms. Cook. Sorry for what happened, and I think looking into technology, there's got to be a technological solution to help with some of these things. So I have a technology background as well. I know that there's always a solution, so I'm sure we'll be able to find something that will help remediate that situation. Congratulations to Ms. Smith, although I think she's departed. In terms of having a stigma-free zone, I think that Franklin is the second most diverse town in New Jersey. Only Jersey City is more diverse than us. And so we need to make sure that people of all shapes, colors, sizes, everything feel accepted, and that is part of our responsibility and our mandate as the Board of Education. We take that very seriously. It's actually embedded in everything we do, from the strategic committee to our goals to everything. And insofar as we can improve that, you have at least my full commitment, I think the board's full commitment that we will do that. So we look forward to getting that particular statement. Some pieces of that are like having Sikh Awareness Month. So congratulations, that beautiful month here to recognize it. Also for our Muslim students, we're gonna be trialing halal meat in our school district. Another sign of inclusivity, another sign that we want other students that may have different dietary needs to feel accepted and welcomed and not have any restrictions on them. One huge thing that we're also pushing for is food insecurity. That's one of our major goals. And we have our FISC meeting, the Franklin Food Insecurity and Safety Coalition meeting, next Tuesday. For anybody who'd like to come, it's at the Senior Center at 3:30. The only goal of this committee, which the Board of Education is fully bought into, and Dr. Orvalli has been helping to spearhead, is to solve food insecurity for our town. We have 45% or so Title I students in our district, meaning they can't afford to, or there's restrictions on paying for lunch, and so FISC is there to help that, and that is a consortium of our district, it's our town council, it's the YMCA, it's our 70 houses of worship, it's our youth center, all coming together to solve one problem in Franklin, which is food insecurity. So when we talk about inclusivity, food insecurity is at one of the basic cores of that. There's a lot of of that there. So anyway, that's this coming Tuesday, if anybody would like to attend that. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm not going to speak like a broken record. Everything that my fellow peers have said, I'm not going to repeat that. The only thing that I will say is, a lot of us are very tough on ourselves. So don't be hard on yourself. Just be you. And you've heard the thing that, cup half full or half empty. Start looking at what's in your cup. And I think that's where change will happen. Because if you have coffee in your cup and you shake it, coffee will fall on you and others. So try and see what's in your cup, and let's work on that. And with that, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.